Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and today we're back at it with another spoiler video. This one is for Magic the Gathering Spider-Man, but it might not be the spoiler video you guys are expecting because just recently at San Diego Comic-Con, an entire batch of Spider-Man spoilers was dropped, and we have a ton of cards to go over from that. But this video isn't that. That one is coming very quickly on the heels of this one, so look forward to that one dropping soon. But very quickly, right after they dropped that batch of cards, within the next day or two after that, they spoiled a card all by itself that I think is incredibly important and says a lot about the direction that Wizards is going with Magic the Gathering in the future. And I think it's so important that it deserves its own video. So before we dive in, please like the video. It helps me get this video out to more people, which helps the channel grow, and it honestly helps more than you guys could possibly imagine, so please hit that like button. Also, tons of spoiler videos on the way, and a new deck tech out of Edge of Eternity Standard dropping every single day on the channel, so look forward to that stuff. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure and hit that subscribe button because you're in the right place, and catch me Monday through Friday over on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/quarantinecapricorn, because if I'm alive and I'm breathing, I'm there and I'm streaming. But let's talk about this card. The card that I want to talk about is the Soul Stone. 1 black and 1 for a legendary artifact, Infinity Stone. And this is sort of like the borderless showcase frame for this card. This is probably the end-all, be-all card style for this card that is going to be the rarest and hardest to get your hands on. And before we dive into what this card does, I just want to speculate for a minute that I don't think all 6 of the Infinity Stones are going to show up in this Spider-Man set. In fact, the fact that I'm seeing even a single Infinity Stone show up in this set gives me the idea that we're probably going to see 1 stone drop in every Marvel set and then eventually culminate with the Infinity Gauntlet itself. So I think they're going to spread these stones out over like 4, 5, maybe even 6 sets. And then probably once you have all of the stones and the gauntlet, there's some kind of crazy combo that you can do with all of the stones and the gauntlet to snap away half of the creatures or maybe just win the game outright. I definitely think that they're playing the long game with this. They've already announced that there are a bunch of Marvel sets on the way over the next however many years, and that Spider-Man is just sort of the tip of the spear. And the fact that we're getting one of the Infinity Stones in a Spider-Man set, which the Infinity Stones have a lot more to do with other things in Marvel, other relevant brands in Marvel rather than Spider-Man. So the fact that we are getting one in Spider-Man, I think honestly is sort of evidence that my speculation might be correct. And I think these stones are going to drop like 1 in each set, or maybe potentially if they only have 3 sets in mind for Marvel, maybe they'll do like Spider-Man, Avengers, X-Men as 3 different sets. And maybe if that's the case, they do 2 stones in each set. So it's possible we might see 1 other stone in the Spider-Man set. But either way, just this stone by itself is kind of crazy. So let's take a look at what it does. 1 black and 1 for a legendary artifact, Infinity Stone. It has Indestructible. You can tap it for 1 black mana. You can also pay 1 black and 6. Tap it, exile a creature you control, harness the Soul Stone. Once harnessed, its Infinity ability is active. And then its Infinity ability is, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So first of all, I want to point out a couple things about this card before we get into deep speculation. Not only is this a legendary artifact, but it has an artifact subtype of Infinity Stone. That is clear evidence that they're obviously going to do all 6 Infinity Stones, and they have a separate card type for them. Now, I don't think anyone's shocked by that. It wouldn't make sense to do 1 stone and not do all of the stones, but I do think it's really interesting that they have their own card type. And that makes me wonder if maybe the Infinity Gauntlet and maybe even some of the other cards that are coming in some of the Marvel sets have a way to specifically interact with that card type Infinity Stone in some kind of unique way. I think that's really cool. I also want to point out that this is just pretty much one of the best, if not the best, mana rocks available. It will be available in Standard, but I also think this card is going to be a staple in Commander and in older formats. a 2-mana mana rock that does not come into play tapped, that taps for a colored mana and is indestructible, by itself is already a pretty good card and probably a staple. Like I said, at least in Commander, I think a card like this ends up being a staple, especially because in Commander, you can only have one of each card in your deck. So the fact that it's legendary doesn't really matter too much. And so I would probably argue that once all 6 of these Infinity Stones are released, I think all 6 of them are going to be must include in Commander decks. And they're just going to be that good. If you're running a Grixis deck, you're going to run the black one, you're going to run the blue one, you're going to run the red one. And the 6th one might be a colorless one, or maybe it's a 5-color one. It's really hard to know how they're going to divvy up the 6 stones among the 5 colors. But if this card is any indication, I think that this card is just very, very good, and the way that they've designed it, it's almost necessary. It's almost like if you don't run these in your Commander decks, you're playing at a handicap in a way. But let's talk about the ability really quick before we get too deep down the rabbit hole, so to speak. Paying 7 mana, tap it, exiling a creature, harnesses it. You do not have to do that at sorcery speed, which is kind of nuts. And then if you do, at the beginning of your upkeep, just return target creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. So you can use this as a mana rock throughout the game while you're curving out. And again, this is standard legal, guys. And then if you do get to the point where you have 7 mana, not including the black that the Soulstone can make, you just hold it up. And on your opponent's turn, if you don't need to use that mana for interaction, for counterspells, or instant speed removal, or whatever, you just use the ability at the end of your opponent's turn, and then you immediately take your turn and bring back your best creature. It doesn't even matter what creature that you exile. It's not like if you exile a creature, you can only bring back things that cost that amount or less, or something like that. There's no hoop. There's no stipulation. You could exile a 1/1 token that isn't even a card, and you could still start bringing back all of your biggest bombs, all of your best cards, once a turn for the rest of the game from your graveyard. And since it's indestructible, it's going to be a lot harder for your opponent to remove the Soul Stone and to stop that from happening. So the Soul Stone, in a way, feels kind of like an emblem from a Planeswalker Ultimate. It honestly feels that way to me, where it's this thing that you build up to, and if you can get there over the course of multiple turns, you get this huge payoff that just kind of stays with you for the rest of the game, and almost makes it so that you automatically win. Not quite, but it's so powerful that the chances that you lose go down very drastically. I just think that's really interesting as a mechanic, almost feeling like a Planeswalker Ultimate built into an indestructible legendary artifact. It almost feels like you have an emblem on the field, and I think everything about this card is just absolutely nuts. I can't wait to brew with it in Standard, even though I'm not the most excited in the world about Spider-Man as a set, because I think it does clash with a lot of the Magic IP in some awkward ways. I do know that most of the Spider-Man cards, all of the Spider-Man cards, when they release on MTG Arena, are going to have a completely different treatment. They're going to be a completely different set with a different name, with different arts, with different names for the cards. It will just be mechanically the same. If you haven't seen my video about that, definitely check out the Spider-Man spoiler season playlist that I've linked in the description and in the comments, because one of the videos is about how the Spider-Man set isn't coming to Arena and is being replaced by a one-for-one, basically copy, duplication of the Spider-Man set that is exactly the same mechanically, just with different names and different arts, which is kind of crazy, but I'm getting sidetracked. My point is, I think this card is pretty insane. I'm really excited to brew with it, but I'm also a little bit worried that they're going a bit crazy and a bit too far with some of this Universes Beyond stuff, making cards that are just like must-haves, must-play, because literally these Soul Stones, if the rest of them are like this one, then they're going to be must-includes in every Commander deck that is running that color, which is just kind of crazy to me. It almost feels the way I feel about Alchemy, where if you're trying to play Alchemy on Arena, the Alchemy cards are so critical. The entire format just revolves around how powerful the Alchemy cards are, which are typically much more powerful than standard level cards. And it doesn't feel the greatest for your standard legal cards to just feel so underpowered and somewhat useless to a certain extent. I kind of get the same feeling with the Soul Stone here as far as Commander. Like, it's just so much better than anything else that you can get comparably in Commander. And like I said before, in Commander, the fact that it's legendary doesn't really matter because you can only run one copy anyway. So kind of crazy. We also have another alternate art for the Soul Stone here, where we see like this comic book art style with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, and the Soul Stone is the only stone in the Infinity Gauntlet, sort of signifying that it was like the first stone that he got, but also signifying that that's the one stone. And I would probably expect there to be this exact same art as an alternate art for every single stone, where it only has that one stone in for that card, which I think will be really cool. But even just having these different treatments, it does feel really rad. Like that first one that we saw that is completely textless just looks really nice. And again, it's just such a mixed bag for me, because I feel like on the one hand, this card is super cool and I can't wait to brew with it, and there's so much you can do with this. It just feels awesome. On the other hand, I'm a little bit worried that they're pushing Universes Beyond a bit too much, because I know a lot of people are a little weary of having to use Spider-Man in their fantasy game, and pushing cards to this degree where they're almost must-use, almost must-includes in your Commander decks feels a little bit weird. But it's a crazy card. I can't wait to mess around with it. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for checking it out. Like I said, I do have an entire spoiler video coming for the entire first batch of cards that was spoiled at San Diego Comic-Con, so expect to see that one very quickly. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, please subscribe. So much crazy content is on the way, and if you haven't seen my deck techs coming out of Edge of Eternity Standard, we got some next level crazy stuff that we've already dropped, and even more insanity that you guys haven't seen is on the way. So look forward to all of that, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck techs, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.